First stage is define, and that is about setting up the basic organizational setups, guidelines, and understanding who does what and where the organization is and what they are trying to achieve, and have an understanding of the stakeholders and the surrounding world together with the risks. We start with the governance. The governance usually shows best when it's not around. So things happen without anyone understanding really who made the decision, or people making the decision out of their scope of control without having any effect, or the basic setup of the bad organizational design that people do have assigned responsibilities, but they don't have authority to decide on related things. All those are related to governance, and therefore it's a relevant part to start with, and to keep track of all the way. We can agree on many things, we can disagree on even more things, we can disagree on all different kind of approaches, methodologies, frameworks, whichever, uh, but they all, if successful, have something in common, and that is that they have a clear understanding who decides what. That's what the governance is all about. This has been emphasized so many times and for so long that it seems to be that even when the ITIL 5 was announced today, so one of the key things that they want to highlight is the importance of the governance. Anyway, if you want to look at more, please feel, for example, to take a look at control objectives for IT, COBIT. That's a good framework. Uh, and But of course you will get the basics from here, and a lot of this one is actually then happening in your organization when your service management as part of the overall governance of the organization sets up that how do you decide things within the IT service management context. So the first process, what ITSM Express calls a process, is the governance. This has, as mentioned, has a background in the frameworks and guidance in forms of COBIT, but also the ISO standards are relevant. So ISO 37000 is generally how to set up the governance within an organization. In Finland, it starts from the law that states that owners select the board and so on. And there's a separate standard for how to organize governance in IT, the 38,500. And there are frameworks and examinations like Seagate or something. So, but this uses these public references, all public kind of references, the ISO standards as reference for governance and the approach to it. Why do we have governance? Why do we try to achieve it? Is that we try to have some guidance for the whole organization, where to go, what to try to accomplish, and so on. So we wouldn't be going in different directions, but we would be somewhat aligned to go in the same direction. So that's what the setting the direction means, and it's a big thing in governance. And where is the organization try to go and why? That is stated in the strategy and the related plan. Well, how to get there? Well, from the top down, you might have understanding where the whole organization is going, but you cannot micromanage every single decision. So therefore, you need to give a guardrails for what is considered to be right scope and right kind. And for that one, the principles should be documented in policies that spread out the stated uh, guardrails for the organization, what to do. But eventually, the objective is the functioning of the organization with a good division of responsibilities and authorities. Part of the governance is the governing body, the board of directors, that practically use the decision making in the organization. And it cascades down from there. They decide what are the things that they need to manage and what is the guidance for the next level, their next level scope of control and the guidance how to make the decisions. And they repeat the same, and that's why how the governance flows in the scope of control downwards, and then afterwards it's measured upwards whether it works or not. But this is the kind of setup that is required in the organization, and within that structure of decision making, we can drive the and get into action the goals of the organization, like how profitable we want to be, how do we will be profitable, what kind of how good everybody needs to feel in the organization to accomplish all the other goals. And of course, a big part of the governance is also to ensure that we are aware of the laws and regulations and also contracts that we are committed to, and we follow those ones, and that is also set up and monitored in the context of the governance and related structure. So the benefits of governance is that we have an understanding of the performance of the organization as a whole. And we wouldn't be having that one unless we had a structure and related reporting. So that's a good thing. We should be able and to accomplish with the governance that we have decision making rules and body for all decisions that we need to do in the organization, and it's preferably in the right level. Uh, this would be a lot more clearer situation than the situation without the governance. Uh, we don't know all the answers, but if we know how to get them or get the decisions, then we are able to process all the stuff that we face in the organization. And it also creates clarity for the people by knowing that which part of they are in the governance, they understand what is their role, their scope of control, their job to be done, and that's usually a lot better situation than without it. So we have a decision-making structure in the right decision-making levels, and we set up the goals, direct the organization, follow up the progress with this structure. So great stuff, can be considered as a benefit, but I also consider it to be prerequisite for an organization to function, though in a small scale with people less than 10. There is also governance, but it's not, it's more evident within the people, that it doesn't need to be so formalized as it needs to be in a bigger organizations. So within this structure, and with this structure, the organization can do following things. It can define what the organization wants to be and how to get there. And then usually that is affected by understanding that how does the organization generate value for its stakeholders, starting from their owners and usually required by their customers that need to have value from the services and products, otherwise the organization doesn't survive. The strategy is how to accomplish the purpose. That is also very much the plans how to get it, and that needs to cascade down in the actions with the guidance and direction what to do, and then afterwards important part is to follow it up, how well does it perform. So there are also aims like how happy customers, what do they achieve, and employees, how happy employees, and also there are legal requirements that need to be fulfilled, and that's a requirement from the authorities that must be ensured with the governance that they are met. Within this concept, organization also has risks. I mean, existing like new market entrants or regulation or economic downturn or geographical or geopolitical things that can happen. These are all uncertainties and risks, and one of the key part of the governance is to able to identify these ones and direct actions to mitigate the risks so that the organization can accomplish its purpose as well as the related goals. And the organization might set up also goals for sustainability, relevant part that is also contributing to the customers and stakeholders, but also in the general purpose and existence of the organization. So how to build this part is to define, you should have, organization should have a purpose, and within that one they should have a vision what they want to be to fulfill the purpose, and create a mission what to aim for, and those are the something to start with. If you're not knowing where you're going, how do you know that you have arrived or done the right things? The second one is to make a as is current state analysis. I mean, look at the things around organization. What is the organization like? What is the organization looking outside the organization? Especially what are the consumers requiring? What is the legal requirements for the work that the organization works in? What kind of sustainability things the company wants to achieve or needs to achieve? And overall strengths and weaknesses, as well as the opportunities and strengths all around the organization. And especially of these all the things that matter around, within and without, outside, think about the parties to interact with, the stakeholders, customers, users, managers, authorities, persons with interest. That is all about the setting up the identifying the influencing factors and stakeholders. In ISO 38500, there are four different kind of activities that are relevant. First, they should do this referenced evaluation about the current state and the direction of the organization. Secondly, they should direct, using the structure, guidance, policies to give people the understanding what kind of decisions to do and where to take the organization. The third one is to monitor whether the previous actions are yielding reasonable results. That happens through key performance indicators and such, as well as the normal reporting. And that I think I would consider to be part of the evaluate, but a ISO 38500 separately mentions stakeholder engagement, which means that we need to communicate with external stakeholders like customers, users, and so on to evaluate stuff and also to show that we have delivered. Well, this EDM doesn't stand for electronic dance music in this context. It stands for evaluate, direct, and monitor, and that is supplemented by the stakeholder engagement. And these form the basic functionality or activities within the governance if it's considered to be a process. So the same thing in different words, but you can consider every manager to be part of this structure. They have a manager, they receive some orders, they have a budget, they have an authority. Budget is also an authority to spend money. And they report what they have achieved with their work and the budget. And all that what is that that part of governance and with these kind of work packages, every manager is doing the governance themselves. They are evaluating what to do in my part with my stuff. They will give directions to their team and suppliers, and they will monitor whether the team and the suppliers deliver. And the managers will also identify and interact with the stakeholders. So all this is about translating governance direction into operational practice in the lower levels with this same thinking, same work, related things that to used in monitoring, and as said, it cascades down the organization. Very small and compact foundation and starting level knowledge based is itsm.express is it has a great content about common pitfalls. So to make people aware where you can go wrong, and if you can avoid these things at least better than without it, then the ITSM Express has done its purpose. The first thing is that don't mix governance with management. Notice that there is this governance is the official decision-making body. It's neutral. It's the structure. It's the rules. It's a hierarchy, how it's intended to be working, and then there is the practical application of that one with people. So the governance doesn't have an agenda itself. It's a structure. But then when you put people in part of the governance, so people have a very different kind of agendas. They have to think about their own salary and their own work promotion and that kind of stuff. And so even though just to give you an idea that that uh, plan the structure separately, but also consider the context that it's going to be applied. So the structure should be fit for purpose in the sense considering the interests of the people and the culture of the organization. The second one is that, as I mentioned, the governance is all around the organization. It's from the top down all the way. It's not something special that happens mysteriously by the CEO and the board of directors, but it's the ITSM board deciding on the ITSM tooling. It's about a manager approving the budgets on supplier or deliveries of the supplier. All that is part of the governance. So it happens in the lower level, and most of the decisions are done in the lower level of the organization, as they should. The third one, the governance and management activities are not clearly separated. That all comes down to the same thing. That think about the structure and the decision making, and then the practical application of that one distinctively separately. Think about that, how to set up the structure to create the decisions. Consider that one as one thing, that's the governance, and then make execution of that one separate, as you cannot. It's a system that is meant to be used to work, and therefore, if it will break down if people don't use it. So therefore, try to make it as distinct as possible. And even though one way to do the governance is to take time for that one with prepared agendas like monthly meetings or weekly meetings, don't get fooled that if you have a meeting, you have executed the governance. The governance is about right decisions at the right times by the right people, and just having a meeting doesn't actually guarantee that you will do the decisions or whether you have authority to do the decisions or whether they will lead to actions, which is one of the key things about the governance. So therefore, even though it's one of the tools to do one part of the governance, see also all the rest that about the decision making that is a part of the governance, and consider that one good question is that can we get better and answers faster if we don't have a meeting, but we have a defined authority and a proper workflow? I mean, meetings are just bureaucracy to get stuff done. They are not evidence of correct action or efficiency. But this kind of stuff, think about who decides what within the service context or within the service management context. That is something to start with. And think about also that do they have a right authority? I mean, if they are responsible for something, can they also make decisions about the stuff that they are responsible? So that's usually a good combination to get stuff done, that you also have those two things in the same place. That's what practically could be the questions for governance. And normally we have a break at this stage, but of course, as this is a recording, you can stop it anytime you need to have a lunch and continue afterwards.